This tropical wave could develop into the next tropical storm by this weekend, and if it doesn't get destroyed, it could strengthen even further next week while heading towards the east coast of the US. But this is only one of several areas to watch for tropical cyclone potential over the next couple weeks. In this video, I'm going to show you the latest information on what's happening in the tropics, but first, if you're new here, feel free to hit that subscribe button for more tropical weather updates. So here's a look at what the NHC has right now. In the latest tropical weather outlook, we have Tropical Storm Dexter across the northern part of the Atlantic. Current winds are 40 miles per hour, minimum pressure of 1005 millibars, and moving northeast at 13 miles per hour. So this is moving away from land areas, not going to impact anybody. But then we have two areas to watch that do have potential to cause impacts and potentially becoming our next two named storms. We have Disturbance 1 with a 40% chance of tropical cyclone formation in 7 days off the southeastern United States. It's a weak trough that's expected to produce an area of low pressure within the next day or two, and the atmosphere is pretty favorable for development, and it could turn into a tropical depression over the next few days. And then we have this is the big disturbance that's been here for a few days with a medium chance of formation. Right now, it's a 50% chance of tropical cyclone formation over the next 7 days, and it has been for at least a day. I think it's been at 50%, so they're keeping it steady there. It's a tropical wave in the eastern tropical Atlantic, and conditions are going to be favorable for this to potentially become a tropical depression late this week or this weekend as it moves west-northwestward. There's a lot of variation in the forecast tracks of where this could end up. Here's the current satellite imagery of Tropical Storm Dexter, and you can see it's getting very sheared. You have the low-level center right here, and a lot of the thunderstorm activity being sheared off to the east, away from the area of low pressure, as this is actually going to be a post-tropical cyclone pretty soon. So yeah, and basically it's expected to stay, hang on to tropical storm intensity for the next 36 hours or so. But then by Thursday, it's going to start becoming more of a post-tropical cyclone moving out to sea. And so this isn't going to impact anybody on land, but it's just another named storm out there. But we do have this one, the big area to watch, that tropical wave we're looking at. Then there's actually another tropical wave behind it that could have some potential, because there are several tropical waves lined up that could actually do something. Now, this one in front is the one we're looking at. There is still some of that dry air that it's going to have to plow right into. The dry air isn't as intense as it was several days ago, last week, and the week before. That's really destroyed a lot of our tropical waves, and we're seeing a lot more tropical wave energy moving in, so that's a good sign for tropical development. Here's a look at the GEFS ensembles. This is going to show what we're looking at in terms of what might end up happening. We have Tropical Storm Dexter up here, moving off to the northeast as that post-tropical cyclone over the next few days by Friday. And then we notice there's this area to watch off the southeastern US that could turn into something weak. Some of the model runs are showing it, some aren't, but in general, it looks like a pretty weak area of low pressure. So we could get a tropical depression, maybe a weak tropical storm out of it, but this one in the main development region is what we're really watching with the most potential as of right now. And then going into Saturday, the ensembles are showing this as a potential tropical system, and it does stay to the northeast of the Caribbean. So it looks like it's going to miss the Caribbean for the most part right now. Going into Sunday morning, we have on August 10th still moving north of the Caribbean. Then after that, notice the ensembles really fan out, not showing a lot of intense tropical development, but it spreads out by quite a bit. Now, that's interesting because the GEFS ensembles really aren't showing a very significant hurricane out of this. Some of the other models are. They're also not bringing it towards the east coast of the U.S. It approaches, but then it turns, so it could move more towards Bermuda or out into the open Atlantic and missing land areas entirely as a fish storm. And then we have some of the other tropical waves that the ensembles are hinting at development potential there after around August 15th or so. Going into later August, we could see some more tropical development. Here's what the Euro ensembles are showing, because they do also show that storm off the east coast of the US, but then this big tropical wave, they're actually taking it further north, and they are keeping it together over the next 6 or so days, all the way into August 11th, but then it pulls it north out to sea, so it entirely misses Bermuda, the east coast of the US, the Bahamas, all of that. It's really a fish storm. Then we have some other storm systems after that the Euro is hinting at potential development with that, even closer to the US, closer, potentially in the Western Caribbean, the Gulf, or off the East Coast. So that's what these ensembles are showing. Now we have the GFS model is showing a tropical depression forming pretty quickly over the next couple days with this tropical wave. Also showing that area of low pressure off the southeastern U.S. could develop. And then this is the post-tropical cyclone that was Dexter. And we have this front here going down, and also this area of high pressure. And that's what's making the track forecast pretty complicated with this storm system, because it could get pulled up towards the extratropical cyclone, towards the fronts, or it could get pushed further west with the area of high pressure. So we'll have to see what happens, and where it goes is actually going to affect whether it does anything or if it gets completely destroyed and doesn't really turn into a tropical system at all. So here's what the GFS has going through Sunday, August 10th. We have a tropical depression possibly heading just north of the Caribbean. And there is moderate wind shear on this at this point, but the moisture is pretty good, actually. And then pretty much by this weekend is when we're going to know if this is going to turn into something more significant or probably not, because conditions aren't that favorable out here in the main development region right now. So once it gets further west is when there's going to be more potential for development. But if it goes completely north like this and avoids the most favorable area entirely, then it's probably not going to do that much. The GFS takes it just north of the Caribbean. Now it's coming towards the Bahamas by August 11th, Monday night. And then here's where it starts to take off. And the GFS model has been showing something in the Western Atlantic from this tropical wave for several model runs for a couple days. So there's something there. We'll just have to see as it gets closer how intense this is going to be and where it could potentially go. But this model run is taking it by August 14th, going off the east coast of the US, and then it turns and it goes along the east coast. It gets down to 964 millibars, so this is a pretty powerful hurricane at this point, possibly a Category 3. Now this is past 10 days out, so this is not a forecast at this point at all. But it does turn into a pretty significant storm system going along the east coast from around August 14th to August 17th, perhaps, and then becoming an extratropical storm by August 18th and moving up into southeastern Canada. And then we have, after that, the GFS model is not showing any other development, except we do have some storm potential in the Gulf right here. And then we'll have to see if there's any more tropical waves lined up, ready to move into the Caribbean or the tropical Atlantic. Here's what the Euro model has. This is where there's a huge disconnect between the different forecast models on what's going to happen with this. Here's the Euro model showing the tropical wave just goes north and gets destroyed, actually, and doesn't turn into anything, because we do have a lot of extreme wind shear that it's going to be running into, because there's an upper level low pressure system that's going to be shearing this. And then the Euro model does develop our storm off the east coast of the US, but east of where the NHC is watching, it might be tropical or not, actually, at this point. But then that tropical wave gets close to that storm system, and then it might turn into a tropical storm before it gets absorbed into a post-tropical cyclone. And then the Euro model is showing more tropical activity further south in the Caribbean. And that is going to be something to watch after this main tropical wave moves through. The other tropical waves behind it could actually take a path further west because of the high pressure system. We have all these fronts weakening that high pressure system down, and so our first tropical wave could actually turn like this, but then the ridge is expected to build back in place. We have potentially a stronger high pressure over here, some of the models showing it stronger over here, and that actually could steer storm systems further to the west, where they could cause even more impacts for the Caribbean or the US, but nothing definitive out this far, of course. We're just watching that tropical wave to see what happens, and it's not going to take that long to see what's going to happen. Like, over the next maybe 3 to 5 days or so, we'll really have a better idea of what it's going to do, because if it doesn't start doing this, like moving straight up to the north, then it could turn further west, and that's where, if it does that, then it could turn into something more significant. The GFS model has basically the reason why it's going to be able to form into something is because it stays further south below this upper level trough right here. So that upper level trough is what's creating a lot of this wind shear, but then if this stays far enough to the south, it's actually in a low shear environment, because besides this upper level trough, there's not a whole lot of wind shear across the tropical Atlantic or the Caribbean. It's pretty light. So if it goes in this direction, it's going to have a great environment to develop and potentially strengthen pretty quickly, especially considering those very warm sea surface temperatures out there. The Euro model showing it's a lot closer to the upper level trough and actually is going to be pulled into that trough and gets sheared apart, or it could potentially strengthen as it turns into a more of a post-tropical cyclone. So that's what we have with that. The CMC model is showing something a little bit different, where it is more in line with what the GFS has. It stays weak for the first few days, but then once we get to around August 11th, so early next week, is when this really starts to take off, if it's going to. Then it heads closer towards Bermuda, actually, as a strong tropical storm, maybe even a hurricane, and then moves north. And then by 10 days out, Friday, August 15th, this is heading towards Newfoundland and Labrador, even Maine, possibly, the far northeastern US, and also Atlantic Canada by August 15th. So that's what these forecast models are showing. There's a lot of uncertainty with it, but it does look like it could turn into a tropical system. We have the GFS model showing that, yeah, things are getting more favorable in the tropics. We have all that dry air. This tropical wave looks like it might be able to survive that. And if it pulls it off, that's going to be the first tropical wave this season that's really been able to actually survive the dry air and actually turn into a system in the tropical Atlantic. And if you notice, this is plowing into that dry air, but the dry air is not quite as intense. So if the dry air is not very strong, going into the next several days, into the weekend, and the shear is pretty light, that's a good sign for tropical cyclone formation. And then it shows basically a tropical storm or a tropical depression this weekend going to early next week. And then after the August 11th timeframe is when this could really take off and intensify into a much more significant storm system. So that's the dry air. The wind shear is also backing off over the next couple weeks, really. Here's the shear anomaly showing areas of above or below average shear. We have this area of wind shear, that's that upper level trough that I was talking about, and then we have an area of lighter shear. So if it stays in this region, then it's going to have a great environment to turn into something. Otherwise, it's not looking too great if it heads directly north, directly into the wind shear. But I am leaning towards more of what the GFS is showing. It stays in place actually going all the way into August 11th. Things look pretty similar, and then going towards Wednesday, August 13th, same thing. And then also the shear is less over the Bahamas, over Florida, where this storm system is going to be moving in. And then that shear is still pretty light over the tropical Atlantic, but then notice all this wind shear is actually the hurricane creating its own shear. If it actually follows the path that the GFS was showing, it's going to be producing shear, but that's not unfavorable for the storm system, and that's going to allow this storm to intensify. If if it heads further west, it's probably going to have a decent opportunity to strengthen into a potentially significant system. So it's definitely something to watch. The idea that it's going to be a huge hurricane slamming into the East Coast or Florida or the Bahamas, it's not necessarily going to do that. That's way too far out to say it's going to, but it could intensify into something pretty significant as it heads west, going in that direction. And then, of course, we have the sea surface temperatures are definitely favorable. Across the main development region, things are around 80 degrees. 81, it's not too bad. And then 82, as it goes further west, notice the sea surface temperatures are quickly rising. So by the time we get towards the western Atlantic, we have lower shear, more moisture, and higher sea surface temperatures, even anywhere from 85 all the way up to 87, maybe even 88 degrees Fahrenheit is extremely favorable for a tropical system. There's areas even 89 or even 90 degrees. There's some maps that are showing sea surface temperatures over 90 degrees, even 91 degrees across parts of the Gulf Coast, even around Florida and the Bahamas, showing some very warm sea surface temperatures. Even the storm system that might form off the coast of the Carolinas would be over sea surface temperatures of around 84 to 86 degrees. So things are pretty favorable in terms of very warm ocean temperatures, even 80 degrees extending all the way up to almost off the mid-Atlantic coast, almost. So reaching over 40 degrees north in latitude. Definitely a lot of warm sea surface temperatures there. And the Climate Prediction Center has released their new Global Tropics Hazards Outlook today. Week 2, going from August 13th to August 19th, we're looking at a 40% chance of tropical cyclone formation headed straight for the Caribbean. So the Climate Prediction Center is watching the tropical waves that are coming after this main one. We could see development in the tropical Atlantic heading towards the Caribbean at this point, and then another area to watch with a 20% chance of formation behind it over Cape Verde. So that's definitely showing there's more activity. And then look at this, week 3, August 20th to 26th, we have another area to watch with potential tropical cyclone formation there, a 20% chance going into week 3 in the tropical Atlantic. And then also the Eastern Pacific might start doing some more things for week 3 as well. So things are definitely heating up in the tropics as the main development region gets more favorable. And part of that's going to be the MJO. Here's the latest 40-day forecast of the MJO showing that, yeah, we have it neutral to slightly favorable over Africa, over the Atlantic, and especially over Africa where we're seeing more of those tropical waves. And then actually this is going into the most favorable phase of the MJO for tropical cyclone activity, where if it's over Africa or just east of Africa, that's actually where it's the most favorable for tropical cyclone activity. So that's going all the way through pretty much the rest of August. It starts shifting over a little bit towards Australia by the time we get into early to mid-September, but that part is very far out and could definitely change. But looks like as we go through August, things are going to be heating up in the tropics rather quickly with several areas to watch. Thanks for watching. If you liked this video, please be sure to hit the like button if you haven't already, share the video, and make sure you hit the subscribe button and turn on notifications for more weather updates on the tropics. Thanks for watching. Extreme Weather Zone, out.